The fluorescent lights in the executive wing of Greymont Industries buzzed like angry hornets as Rya Patel stood frozen in the doorway of Casper's glass-walled office. Her yearly bonus, every hard-earned credit of it, the one she had counted on down to the last decimal, sat locked behind a digital wall she couldn't touch. Casper didn't even look up from his tablet, tapping away at something far more important than the single mother standing in front of him. "Budget concerns," he said flatly, waving a manicured hand. "Company-wide decision. Consider yourself lucky you still have a job, Rya. Production coordinators are replaceable. The bonus is frozen indefinitely. End of discussion." Rya's chest cracked open, not with a dramatic shatter but with a thin, hairline fracture that promised to spiderweb across everything she had built. 11 weeks. That was all the time left before Mahi's surgery. The abnormal growth in her daughter's leg had worsened. The doctors had been clear: without the procedure, permanent damage, constant pain, a childhood stolen. Rya had planned every rupee of that bonus for the hospital, the travel, the recovery. Now it was gone. Vanished with a casual swipe of corporate policy. She swallowed the scream rising in her throat. "Understood," she said, voice steady as steel. "Thank you for letting me know." Casper finally glanced up, a smug little smile tugging at his lips, the kind that came from someone who had never once worked the night shift when a stamping press seized or negotiated with a furious supplier at 3 a.m. He wore a watch that cost more than Rya's monthly rent. She turned and walked out before the fracture could widen. In the women's washroom on the 3rd floor, she locked herself in a stall, pressed her forehead to the cool metal door, and breathed. In. Out. The crack inside her wasn't rage yet, it was clarity, cold and razor-sharp. 6 years she had kept this factory alive. When the main generator failed during a monsoon blackout, she had rerouted power from the backup grid while standing ankle-deep in water. When raw material shipments arrived short or contaminated, she sweet-talked, begged, and bartered until production never stopped. When safety audits loomed, she stayed late fixing the shortcuts management loved to ignore. And Casper? He had been here 3 years, hired through family connections, and still couldn't tell the difference between a CNC mill and a coffee machine. He had no idea who really held the keys. Rya wiped her eyes, straightened her simple salwar kameez, and walked back to her desk as if nothing had happened. But inside, the plan was already forming, quiet, precise, unstoppable. She had 3 people who owed her favors, 3 people Casper treated like furniture. First, Ballon. The 61-year-old factory supervisor had 23 years on the floor. He knew every machine, every worker's name, every hidden weakness in the production line. The 52 men and women under him would follow him into fire. Casper had once joked in a meeting that old Ballon should retire already. Cheaper kids from the vocational college could do his job twice as fast. Ballon had heard. He had said nothing, but his eyes had gone flat. Rya met him in the small canteen during the afternoon lull, sliding a cup of his favorite strong chai across the table. "They're freezing bonuses," she said softly. "Mine included." "Mahi's surgery." Ballon's weathered hands tightened around the cup. She didn't have to say more. She simply planted the seed. Casper mentioned bringing in contract labor. Younger. Cheaper. No pensions. It wasn't entirely a lie, he had floated the idea in passing. Ballon's jaw clenched. By the end of their 10-minute conversation, his retirement papers were already half-filled in his mind. Next, Rugov at Titan Metals. Titan supplied 80% of Greymont's raw steel and alloys. Rugov trusted Rya because she had never once lied about delivery dates or quality issues. Casper, on the other hand, had delayed payments for 3 months straight, hiding the arrears behind creative accounting. Rya called Rugov from the stairwell, voice low. "The bonus freeze is just the start," she murmured. "Cash flow problems. They're stretching suppliers again. If Titan pushes for immediate settlement," she let the implication hang. Rugov's silence on the other end was heavy. He liked her. He did not like being taken for granted. By evening, Titan's accounts department was reviewing every outstanding invoice with fresh eyes. Finally, Mohan, the union representative. Mohan had fought for better ventilation, machine guards, overtime pay. Casper had dismissed every request as union drama. Rya met him after shift change in the parking lot, the orange glow of streetlights catching the worry lines on her face. Safety allocations were never spent, she said. The ventilation system in Hall B hasn't been serviced in 14 months. If the labor board knew, again, not pure fabrication, just the sharp edges of truth sharpened further. Mohan's expression darkened. He had been waiting for a reason to escalate. Rya drove home that night with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Mahi was already asleep on the couch, leg brace propped on a pillow, a children's book open on her chest. Rya knelt beside her, brushed a lock of hair from her daughter's forehead, and whispered, "Mama's going to fix this, baby. I promise." The next 3 days were a masterclass in controlled chaos. Balan didn't show up for his shift on Monday. Instead, he sent a polite resignation email citing health concerns and lack of respect for senior staff. The floor workers, 52 loyal souls, slowed to a crawl. Machines that usually hummed with precision began throwing minor errors. No one called for help the way they once had. Production dropped 20% by lunch. Tuesday morning, Titan Metals placed a hold on all deliveries until the 3-month arrears were cleared in full. Trucks that were supposed to arrive at dawn never left their depot. Raw material bins emptied. The stamping lines went silent one by one. Casper was on the phone before 9 a.m., voice rising from annoyed to frantic. Wednesday brought the inspector's labor board officials tipped off by an anonymous complaint about safety violations. They arrived unannounced, clipboards in hand, and found exactly what Rya had described. Unserviced exhaust systems, missing emergency stops on 2 presses, inadequate PPE storage. Fines were issued on the spot. Production ground to 40% capacity. The owners, 2 elderly brothers who rarely visited the floor, were finally pulled out of their golf club retreat. Rya moved through it all like a ghost in her own life. She answered emails, helped where she could, kept her face calm while her heart hammered. Every time Casper stormed past her desk, red-faced and sweating through his expensive shirt, a dark, quiet satisfaction bloomed behind her ribs. He had thought he could freeze her life with a signature. He had no idea she held the entire factory in the palm of her hand. On Thursday afternoon, the summons came. Casper was nowhere to be seen. The owner's secretary called Rya to the top-floor boardroom. She rode the elevator with steady breaths, the fracture in her chest now a controlled fault line. When the doors opened, both owners sat at the long table, faces grave. Casper was absent. "Sit, Rya," Mr. Greymont Sr. said, voice surprisingly gentle. They had reviewed the numbers. They had spoken to Balan, to Raghav, to Mohan. They had seen the pattern. Casper's company-wide decision on bonuses had been his alone. Part of a scheme to inflate short-term profits for a personal performance bonus he had been chasing. The payment delays, the ignored safety issues, the quiet undermining of veteran staff, all of it traced back to him. They released her bonus immediately, full amount plus an additional 10% for emotional distress and inconvenience. They offered her the position of operations manager, reporting directly to them, with a substantial raise. Balan would be brought back part-time as a consultant for 6 months to train his replacement and stabilize the floor. Titan would resume deliveries once the arrears, which Casper had hidden, were settled from company reserves. Rya sat very still as the words washed over her. Then the tears came, silent, overwhelming, years of exhaustion and fear and midnight worry pouring out in the quiet boardroom. The older men waited patiently, handing her tissues without embarrassment. When she could speak again, she asked only one thing, that Balan's pension and respect be guaranteed. They agreed without hesitation. That evening, Rya walked into their tiny apartment carrying a box of Mahi's favorite sweets and the bank alert on her phone showing the funds cleared. Mahi looked up from her drawing, eyes wide. "Mama? Your face, you look different." Rya dropped to her knees and pulled her daughter into her arms, holding her tight enough to feel the steady beat of her small heart. "It's okay now, baby," she whispered, voice breaking. "The surgery is paid for." Everything is going to be okay. Mahi buried her face in Rya's shoulder. I was scared you were sad because of me. Never because of you, Rya said fiercely. Never. Later, after Mahi had fallen asleep with a smile on her face for the first time in weeks, Rya sat at the small kitchen table and opened her work email one last time. There was a single message from Casper's new address, some remote branch in a dusty industrial town 3 states away. I know what you did.